welcome to Campus Cooking. I'm your host, Eric D'Arcy, and we're here with our guest, Dustin, who's excited to learn about how to make French toast and Reuben sandwiches on a budget. The aim here today is to make these two dishes cheaper than what you would have to pay for them outside at a restaurant or something along those lines. How you doing today, Dustin?
I'm wonderful, thanks. And you?
I'm very well. You excited for these two dishes?
I am super excited.
All right, then. Let's get started. We're going to begin with the French toast. And you start by, first of all, we're using a griddle, I guess we should say. It's a very easy tool to pick up for a college student. They're only about $30 to $40, especially if you go to those larger department stores. They're thin, they're low, they can slide easily underneath a bed and just get wiped down quickly to be cleaned. It can be placed on any counter and just really quick tools to pull out and use. So we're going to start by turning this on and heating it up to about 250. We don't want to go too hot to start off because we don't want to burn the toast as it cooks. And you can always turn it hotter. It's just not as easy to lower the temperature once you get it started. And we're going to go ahead and grab our butter here, which is a necessity. We're going to take a chunk off. Actually, a little bit smaller than that. There we go. We're going to stick it on here and let it kind of get around on that griddle. While we're doing that, we've got our eggs, and we're going to crack those open, and they're going to go in this bowl and get mixed with a couple of other ingredients to make that taste that you guys know so well. When you crack an egg, you want to make sure you do it on a flat surface and not an edge like is commonly done. So you're going to crack that open. You don't need to hit it as hard as I hit it. Just put that in the trash there. Just do a tap. Come on, there you go. All right. Just wipe my hands off here. We got our eggs in there. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of milk, which is right behind me here. Now, you can use store-bought milk, and if you don't want to go for the whole half gallon or something about this size, it's just as easy to go for the can of evaporated milk. These are also easily stored and can, gosh, you can store them for God knows how long, and it won't go bad or anything like that. We're going to go ahead and add a 1/4 cup of milk. We're going to watch our butter here as it spreads around real quick. Going to get that out there. Okay, so we add our milk. And we're going to do a capful of vanilla extract. Just a capful. Too much, and you're going to overpower these things. Just a capful. All right. Let's grab a fork. We're going to whisk this stuff up real quick. You're going to be able to smell that vanilla in there. Okay. And now that that's all done, you've pretty much done all of the hard parts for Reuben sandwiches. You're just going to take your halved slices of bread here. You're going to dip them in there and get them nice and covered. Don't be afraid to get them all in there. Then you place it on your griddle and let that cook up. And while it's on the griddle, you can salt and pepper to taste. You don't want to do too much on the salt because it will overpower. Just a little bit of pepper, just a little bit of salt. And you got to be careful with these cheaper versions of salt dispensers because they can come out pretty fast. And the same thing goes for those cheap grinders too, because they don't grind very well, and you'll wind up getting chunks of salt and chunks of peppercorn, which isn't very tasteful to bite into. So you can go ahead and add a couple more of these things. Go ahead and get them on there. They're not going to take too long to cook at all. And they're going to brown on one side. We'll show you that here in a second as we add these in. The salt and pepper is what's going to pop the taste here for these French toast slices. You can make quite a bit of these, as you can tell with a loaf of bread. That was just 2 slices of bread, which is pretty cool, I think, because if you were to go to a local restaurant, even the cheaper kind, and you were to buy slices of French toast, you'd be spending a little over $1.50 a piece. Whereas here, we're spending about 45 cents a piece. That actually needs to go back over for a little longer. So we'll let those sit for a bit as we salt and pepper the other ones. Just getting that on there nicely. See how that came out there pretty fast? So 45 cents per toast, and you can feed your roommates with this stuff. You all can go in on it together, and it's not going to be that big of an expense. You could all pitch in on the cost of the griddle, and it's not going to be that big of an expense. I'm going to increase the temperature here to just under 300, see if we can get this going a little bit faster. But you know, when you do this at home, you don't really you're not pressed for time. Or when you do this at the school, you're not pressed for time. Just make sure they're not sticking here. These are kind of small slices, but once again, you can make tons of them out of a whole loaf of bread. I think there's about 18 slices in a loaf of bread, and you can cut them in half, and you can imagine that's a lot of French toast. And we're just letting this stuff brown up here. It's taking its time. To garnish your dish, if you want to go all out, you can add some strawberries or any other kind of fruit like blueberries, easily picked up at the local grocery store and produce. And these were not that expensive. They were about, I think, $1.50 or $1.79. Sometimes closer to $2 if they're out of season or something like that. And that's not bad. And it's healthy. You're going to, of course, you've got your options for syrup and whatnot, which is right over here. And I tend to use a log cabin syrup, which is better tasting, I think, and a little more natural in comparison to the stuff like Miss Butterworth's and all that other jazz. We're just kind of getting this browned up a little bit, along with the other ones. And does it smell good?
Ooh, it smells great.
Yeah. I always like good French toast. You could add flakes to this.
I like how fluffy it's turning out.
It is fluffy. It's definitely fluffy. Sometimes these tend to turn out kind of like flatsy-patsy, but that's no big deal. Once again, they're going to go down quick, especially if you're as big a guy as I am. I tend to eat these down. I don't even put syrup on them. So we're just kind of letting this brown up a bit, and it's getting there. You'll feel the outside texture here sort of hardening like toast would, but also it's got that egg in there too, so you'll feel it kind of like what a fried egg would feel like. Just kind of let that go, and you can let it get darker if you prefer, kind of like that texture there, which is a little brown on the edge. See that there? We'll go ahead and put it on your plate. Get that butter knife off there. As they complete. And this goes great with a glass of milk or any kind of breakfast type of liquid that you might like. And we'll let those go there. And as I said, you can lightly syrup if you want. Some prefer their syrup on the side, like our guest here, so we're going to do that. We're going to put our syrup on the side, just a little bit. Too much syrup, too sweet. It's not as fun. You could add a little bit of powdered sugar if you want. That is powdered sugar. There we go. Kind of dabble that on there. Not the most aesthetic thing, but it's going to taste great. And then we can add a little bit of strawberries because our guest here loves fruit. Some strawberries on there. And we can go ahead and add these in there. And that's about it for the French toast. So stick around, and we'll be doing Reuben sandwiches right after this. Welcome back to Campus Cooking. I'm your host, Eric D'Arcy, and we're still here with Dustin, who is finishing up some of the French toast we made before. How's it taste, Dave?
Wonderful. Strawberries with a great touch. And like I said, it's just so fluffy.
Yeah?
And the salt just popped it.
Well, good, good.
Yes, thank you.
Well, now we're going to move on to the Reuben sandwich, which is a pretty common sandwich to get nowadays for lunch and whatnot. And it's not hard to make at all. A Reuben's composed of rye bread, which you can get at the grocery store easily enough. I tend to get the Klosterman rye bread, which is a Cincinnati brand, and it's only about $1.50. It's not that bad. And then you got your Swiss cheese. Now this here is aged Swiss. It's pretty cheap because we're working on a budget right now. But if you have the extra cash, I recommend going to the deli and getting some of the big hold Swiss, which will allow that to kind of wrap around the meat the way we want it to. And then on the same plate, we've got our corned beef, not roast beef, corned beef. And when you go to the deli, you want to make sure you go to the deli and don't get the prepackaged stuff. You want to ask for deli sliced. Now, a pound of this right now, as of this month, was about $8.99, which sounds expensive, but you're going to make a lot of sandwiches out of this in comparison to just buying one sandwich for about $8. We've also got some butter that we're going to be using, once again, and sauerkraut, and we'll be using Thousand Island. And this was just $1.50 as well. So we start by preheating our griddle again to about 200, just a little over 250 degrees, almost to the 300 mark. I want to go and get that hot. This one's been heating up for a bit. And while that's doing its thing, we're going to put a little bit of this sauerkraut here on the griddle because we want to get it warmed up. The sauerkraut usually comes in a can, so you want to make sure and strain it before you use it. And you don't have to worry about using all of it. You're going to have a lot of leftover, actually, because you're not putting the whole can on a sandwich. You can put that in Tupperware, and then you just buy a sausage link later on, and you can have sausage and sauerkraut, which is a very easy dish to make. So, while that's doing its thing, we're going to butter up our rye bread outsides here. And I tend to like, when I'm buttering bread, I like to use a brush. This was only $9. You can get them for a lot cheaper with a liquid butter, and just kind of evenly get it around there. And you'll see how the shine's kind of evenly going around it. And, having to use cheap butter knives tends to cut the bread up while you're doing that. This avoids all of that. And it saves you some time and hassle. And so we're just spreading this around evenly while our sauerkraut's warming up. And then you start to build your sandwich. Now obviously the buttered side is going to go on the griddle. So we flip it over. And we're going to stir our sauerkraut here just a hair. We're not trying to burn it, we're just trying to get it warmed up. There we go. Now, layering a Reuben sandwich, you want to make sure that anything that has juices isn't close to the bread, because the juices are going to make the bread soggy. So we're going to start with our corned beef on one side. Just going to get it in there, kind of roll it in like I just did. Obviously, it's not going to take a lot of slices to make a full sandwich. These are kind of big slices. And while that's on there, we're going to add a little bit of Thousand Island. Whoops. Just a little bit. Watch out for these pop tops. You can use the other side of the bread to push that around because there's going to be Thousand Island on that side too. Just kind of get it on there a little bit. You don't want to put a whole bunch of Thousand Island on there because it'll take over the flavor of the whole sandwich, and you don't want that. And on the other side, you're gonna Thousand Island your bread like we just did. We're just going to add a tad bit more. And we'll use our fork here to spread that around again. Just kind of get that all over. Just a little bit more. And we'll spread that around again. You see, you got a little bit on top just kind of hanging out there, but it's not like dripping over the sandwich bun or the bread. And now that that's done, we put our Swiss cheese on that side. Just like that. And you got a nice even amount of cheese there. And you can go ahead and add your sauerkraut. Wipe this island off real quick. Go and add your sauerkraut to the sandwich. It's all nice and warmed up now. You can see the steam coming off there. Now, this is a strong vegetable here, so you're going to definitely smell it, and the people around you while you're cooking are probably going to be smelling it too. And that's okay. That's just going to make them want it more. So we get that sauerkraut in there, and then you flip your top over like that, and your bottom's already buttered, so you stick it on the griddle. You can use your spatula to flatten it down a bit, and you let that hang out while it's cooking. Meanwhile, we've got this sauerkraut here, so I'm going to go ahead and start on another sandwich, a little quicker this time. We add our corned beef, just like we did before. This is a little thicker than I would have liked on my corned beef. I tend to like mine very thin, but you'll be okay. If you get it too thick, if you don't specify, then you're going to wind up pulling the meat right out of your sandwich when you go to bite in, and you don't want that to happen. So, how you doing over there, Dust?
Wonderful, thank you.
Add a little bit of Thousand Island over here. Does this look good?
It does. Smells good too.
Oh yeah, that sauerkraut really comes out. I mean, people are going to know that you're making a Reuben sandwich. If you're in a public area, you're probably going to get asked what you're doing. So we're going to bring a little more of this Swiss cheese over here. And now that we got that, we're going to take the rest of this here sauerkraut. Could probably use a little more, but we're going to add that on there. You can hear that sandwich going. Pull a little more sauerkraut. There we go. Let that warm up a bit. I'm going to check the bottom of our sandwich here. It's not nearly as brown as we'd like yet, but it's definitely hardened up a bit. You don't have that soft rye bread feel anymore. And this is going to get toasted a little bit. And you want it to. You want it to feel like it just came out of a toaster. And while on the inside, your Swiss cheese is melting up nice and around the corned beef, and the corned beef's going to harden a little bit. So I'm going to increase the temperature here to speed this process up a tad. Put the rest of this sauerkraut on my sandwich and add another one to it. And once you get that going, it's pretty self-explanatory. Flip this over here. Add my butter, because I didn't do that before. Very easy. We can butter the other side when you get it on the griddle. Just like that. We're just slopping that on there. And as a garnish, kettle potato chips. Came from the store. They're only about $2.99. Just pop that open there. Just tear here. You get your plate ready. There you go. And that's that. Excusing the mess, that's how to make a Reuben. You just let that brown up and you add it to your plate of chips and you're done. Thank you very much for watching Campus Cooking. We hope you learned a lot, and you're looking at about $4 cheaper than what you'd spend at the store for this, and this is a great lunch. So stop back by for the wrap up, and we'll see you soon. Welcome back to Campus Cooking. I'm your host, Eric D'Arcy, and Dustin and I are enjoying the Reuben sandwiches that we just made. You can tell they came out nice and brown like they should. The cheese is nicely melted, and the corned beef, you can tell it's done because it got a little bit hardened on the side here, and came out nice and crusty the way we like it.
Yes,
we're
sir.
enjoying this with some water. How's it taste, E?
It's wonderful. Wonderful.
Tastes good? You got that sauerkraut in there? All right. You can drink any kind of anything that typically goes with a sandwich. Sodas are great. I like Coke. Water, of course, is the healthiest thing that you can use. And we've got this as a side with some salt and pepper kettle chips. And
Wonderful
it just pops
flavor
the flavor
combination, yes.
Yeah. And you could also add some fruit if you'd like. This was extremely cheap compared to going out and getting something for $7 or $8. You spent probably for per sandwich about $3.50 to $4, and we still have plenty of ingredients left over to make some, probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 more sandwiches. And then you'll have some ingredients after that to stock away for your next dish. Like I said before, you could make sausage and sauerkraut for a quick meal before class, or other Reuben sandwiches, wrap them up in foil and keep them ready to go for the next lunch. Throw it in the microwave and you're good to go. So tons of options, and we'll be showing you more of that in future episodes. So for now, go home, make a dish, enjoy the food, and thank you for watching Campus Cooking.
Cheers.
Cheers to you. I love water.